Welcome to the AccuShield podcast. I'm Deontay Davis, VP of Sales here. And today I'm joined by Ed Russell, CEO of WCS based in the UK. Ed, welcome.
Thank you. Hello.
Glad to have you here. So obviously everyone knows AccuShield as the touchscreen kiosk company that really helps operators get their arms around who's coming and going from a safety and security perspective with our touchscreen kiosks. But as of recently, we've partnered with BookJane, who you all have used for quite some time, which is a scheduling call-out solution designed to help with shift management and making sure shifts are filled. We've actually partnered with them and launched AccuShield Flex, which is what you're here doing at this workshop today, speaking to discuss staffing really and how that's been the biggest challenge of the industry, and to just bring in a bunch of different providers, operators, owners to discuss some ways to address this challenge. So again, we have pleasure having you here, and we're excited to dive into it.
Thank you.
So Ed, tell me about how'd you get into senior living, and what's made you stay?
Well, I was always going to be a farmer, but ended up couldn't work with my dad. So I started off in business, advertising, picked the bottom of a recession to do so. So it didn't work out. So as I was winding that up, I went into senior living because I could flex other appointments around that, and found I loved it and could really make a difference. And there was a lot of things that weren't great that I was motivated to change. So went from there.
Okay. So a lot of things that weren't being done well. What are some of those things?
So as an outsider coming in, everybody had a drink at the same time of day, had the same drink with no sugar or with sugar, went to the loo at the same time, went to bed at the same time. And there didn't seem to be much personal choice for people.
And so talk to me a bit about WCS, how many locations you guys have, what type of care you provide, all that.
So WCS is a not-for-profit organisation, and we're based right in the middle of England in Warwickshire, near Stratford-on-Avon, where Shakespeare was born.
Oh, cool.
So we have 13 sites, care homes, employ about 900 people, and care for about 600 residents that you would call memory care in those homes. And across those sites, they're based in, say, 3 in a town, and then there's another town 20 miles away, and another 3 or 4 in that town, and so forth. So we're in quite a nice, tight geographical spot.
So how far was the flight from England to Atlanta?
I don't know in miles, but it was about 8 hours.
8 hours? Okay.
Yeah.
So what made you fly across the world 8 hours to come to this workshop and come speak at the workshop?
Well, we've been known for our innovation back home, and I came 4 years ago, just before COVID, to go through some of those innovations at a senior living conference, and ended up taking home far more than I felt that I was bringing to the party. So there were things like taking a much longer term point of view with sales through a trusted advisor, and getting a bit of your US razzmatazz for elevating the role of caregiving. And then last year when I came, your staffing crisis was pretty bad, and you had to do or die. And we were a bit behind you back home, perhaps half as bad. Yeah. But I could see the trajectory we were on, and was a very good student, and looked at what you were doing, took it home and did it. And I've been asked to come back to give some progress.
Yeah, love that. So speaking to that, what are some of the major differences, and maybe some similarities too, that you see between senior care in the United States versus the UK?
I think maybe distance and geography between sites could be different. I think the industry feels quite scarred over here. You've been through some really, really tough times, and it's a job to get the confidence to stop what you're doing and evaluate and do something different. And technology has moved on, and it's sort of partnering technology with a philosophy of making people who are caregivers or carers, as we say back home, is one of the best jobs there is. And helping them to realize that themselves has been a huge piece of work that we've done.
Truly. Yeah, and I think that's been a really awesome thing to hear all the different perspectives from all the attendees of the workshop and the speakers too. I mean, we have about 120 attendees and 6, 7 speakers or so, and about 2,000 communities represented, all across the United States, across Canada, and then obviously some from overseas too. So it's been pretty awesome to hear everyone's experience, what's working, what's not working. So for you guys in particular, what would you say are some things when it comes to staffing challenges that have been working really well for WCS?
So of particular interest was we set up our own internal agency where we became the agency ourselves, where we flipped the technology. And that means that workers can choose which one of our sites they would go and work at. And each care home has a lot more options. So we've ended up with about 10% of our workforce as being flexible mobile workers, which has been a game changer. And we've become the second job for a lot of people. It meant we could recruit people we've never recruited before as a second income. And we've then been able to bet against the savings we've made and increase our pay for our mobile workers. So we now pay more than the agencies do without their markup, and have been able to put them out of business locally. So it's been a game changer, and we've reduced agency by 85% over the last 12 months. Complaints have reduced by a quarter. Activities have gone up by nearly a fifth for leisure activities for residents because we have the staff in place.
Mm-hmm. And so you said you guys are providing more flexible scheduling now as well for your team. What does that look like?
So people can choose, really have the control when they work. So university students can top up their incomes and pick shifts well in advance. So it could be 3 months, 3 months in advance. Our own workers can pick and choose when they do overtime, when they don't. And sometimes having much shorter shifts. So some of our workers may have universal roles where they can do care, they can work on the front desk, and that's been a real game changer.
Very versatile staff over there, yeah. And I think that's been one great thing that a lot of the speakers have been discussing, which is, we're in a gig economy now. Everyone wants to live their life, they want to enjoy their life, but also they need to work, right? And so with senior living, being able to compete with the likes of Uber, Uber Eats, DoorDash, all that, where people can have more flexibility. They can work, 4 hours a day. Really with AccuShield, we've thought, how do we provide that same opportunity to our customers in senior living to attract really better workers and to attract more staff? So pretty awesome to hear you guys are ahead of the curve with that, and it's working well. So what was it like to be the first UK provider to successfully install acoustic nighttime monitoring and circadian lighting? I was looking you up online, saw something about that, so talk to me about that.
So this is something we saw in the Netherlands, back in Europe, where at night they listened in to unusual sounds using software with someone monitoring, and would only send rather than doing regular checks on every room and waking people up when they do so, and could respond much more quickly to events. And it took much less staff because everyone was asleep. So we retrofitted it in one of our care centres. In the first year, we reduced falls by 34% at night. And when you add that up to daytime, that was 55%. Yeah. And people often ask, well, why is that? Or how does that happen? A, we get there quicker, but B, there's less people to fall because they're asleep. So given the health benefits overall, the UK government was very, very interested in how that saves our own National Health Service a lot of money for hospital admissions, and has started to fund that back home across the UK.
That's good. So you said you thought you were going to be a farmer, right? As a plan?
Yeah, and that links to circadian lighting a bit, because we have, back home, we have sheep on our farm, and they come into season based on the length of day and daylight. And then we used to have chickens back home, and then we put a red light bulb in at a certain time of year, and it stopped them fighting. Wow. And so we've done a lot of work with changing the lighting over a 24-hour period. So at night it goes to a very warm light, and in the day to a very bright light, like being outside on a cloudy day. And it's had a huge impact on people living with dementia, sundowning syndrome, where people get really agitated in the evenings. And it's pretty much eliminated that. And we've got a PhD underway with no less than Oxford University back home, hoping to share with the rest the benefits of that.
Yeah. So, when you think about the landscape of senior living, you've been in it for quite some time. How many years total?
31.
31 years. Okay. Long time. So thinking about how senior living has changed throughout the last, 30, 50 years, where do you really see the industry heading over the next 5 to 10?
I think our mission with our staff is, and certainly my purpose, is to make our care homes better than the alternatives. And that keeps us real today. We have to do it today, else we have no customers. But also getting a better type of care for the future that is for my parents, be for me when my time comes one day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, Ed, again, you traveled very far to come here from overseas. So what would you say to anyone who is potentially thinking about coming to the workshop next year? Why would you tell them to come?
Well, certainly for me, the thought leadership, the time in between speakers when you're learning off other people and other attendees, and everything's the same but different and slightly off, and it really provokes thinking. And most conferences, they've described this as an unconference today. Most conferences you get a range of speakers, but this, we've stayed on topic, on focus, and we've got a really consistent message coming through in lots of different ways with a very open, can-do attitude. And I think speaking to other attendees, they're taking a lot away.
Yeah, and that was really the big reason why we wanted to be different than having a conference, right? Most people will go to a conference, they'll listen to people speak, and then not really implement anything. So we want to have a workshop where people can come, learn, interact, and really get their hands dirty, roll up their sleeves, and learn some new stuff that they can actionably do when they leave the workshop. So it's good to hear. So last question I got for you, Ed. What piece of advice would you give to your younger self whenever you first stepped into senior care?
Believe you can make a difference, and start with what you want and work backwards from there, and don't let anything stop you.
Did you think that you were going to become a CEO?
No.
Fast forward 30 years?
No.
Yeah.
Everyone else did, but I didn't.
Yeah, love it. They believed in you.
Yeah, they did.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, Ed, it's been a pleasure. Again, super grateful to have you here. Glad that you came, this far to come speak and interact with everyone here. So we appreciate it.
Thanks. It's been fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.